Hello everybody, God bless you. Well, I've been in the car again, so I'm going to do another video. I usually do my videos at the house, but it seems as of late, I've been in the car more than I've been in the house. So, that is what it is, as they say. Today's the 24th day. It is of May. It is March. Oh my goodness gracious. 24th day of May, 2020. It is Sunday, and it's the day before Memorial Day. Memorial Day is a day that we honor those that served, fought, and died for this country. I served in the U.S. Army, Fort Knox, Kentucky. Nice place, real big place, known for, of course, gold, but also known as a big tank base. They have a lot of tanks there, at least when I was there they did. And anyways, so Memorial Day, it's to remember. And you know, when you have the Lord in your life, and you have that, you have that to lean on when things go wrong or when things don't go wrong. It's nice to have. There's an old story, and I keep with the military theme real quick. There's an old story about there's no atheists in foxholes. And my friends, that is true. That is very, very true. When your life is on the line, you don't know if you're going to make it, not day to day, but literally second to second, minute to minute. More men have cried out to God that had never even invoked the name God unless it was used in profanity, or they took the Lord's name in vain. It is literally true. And I love people that want to argue with me and say an atheist is always once an atheist, always an atheist. Well, every time I ever hear somebody say that, I always ask them, have you ever served in the military? You ever been in a combat zone? No. Well, then you ain't got nothing to say about that. You really don't. More men have literally given their lives to Christ that prior to going into that situation had nothing to do with God. More men have changed, had their lives changed in an instant because they asked the Lord to be with them, to get them through that situation, that battle, that firefight, whatever, you know. And I just thought it would be befitting, since tomorrow is Memorial Day, to tell you a story about my father, who's no longer with us. I lost my father when I was really young. He's been gone a long time. And my father fought in a very, very horrific war that is, for the most part, forgotten about in the United States. And it is sad because it was an absolute brutal conflict. And the conflict lasted 3 years, and a lot of men died, and a lot of men came home never the same, be it physically or mentally. And of course, I'm talking about the Korean War, which started in 1950 and ended, well, actually, if you want to know the truth, it's never really ended. It's still just a ceasefire. There's never been a real serious ending of that war. But anyways, everything ceased in 1953. My father, at the tender age of 15 years old, told a fib, there's no other way to put it, and fibbed his way into the United States Army. Told him he was 17 or 18, whatever you had to be back then. I know you had to be older than 15. And so there he was. There he was in the U.S. Army at 15 years old. Now, I'm sure when he joined the Army, he never thought about war, because we had just came through a horrific conflict known as World War II, where 50, 60 million people lost their lives, something crazy like that. So, we weren't apt to really getting into another one within 5 years, but that's exactly what happened. So, but I'm sure it wasn't on my father's mind when he joined the military. But lo and behold, at 15, there he was in Korea, in a infantry unit, of all things, in an infantry unit, fighting at 15 years old. Think about that for a minute, my friends. Just let that sink in. Imagine the 15-year-olds we see today, or even 15 years ago, whatever, in the 90s. Just imagine them at 15 in a conflict, in a combat zone, with artillery popping off all around, sniper bullets cracking, the dirt next to you, hordes and hordes of the enemy charging at you. Imagine the 15-year-olds today. They would turn and run, or they'd pass out from total fear. But my father was cut from a different mold, as most men were in those days. They were cut from a different mold. What do I mean? They were just tough. They were tough. They grew up poor, most of them, my father included, and they survived, and they became survivors. And when they found themselves in World War II or Korea, they survived. Of course, not all of them. There was a lot of death, but 15 years old, there he was. My father never really talked about the war. I remember one time that he told me a story, because I kept bugging him, as a kid would. Tell me a story about the war, Daddy. Tell me a story about the war, about a fight, a battle you were in, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Nah, I don't want to talk about it, son. Some other time. That's what he always used to say. Just some other time. I don't want to talk about it. Well, that some other time came one day on the way home from baseball practice. That's one thing, me and him had a very wonderful love of baseball. My father played in the Pirates and the Cardinals system. He's very good. And we had an absolute love. We shared that love of baseball, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. He was a wonderful and an exceptional father. You can always remember, no matter how tired he was, he always found time to go in the backyard and play ball. He built me a pitcher's mound. He literally talked to the guy that did I'm getting off topic, but this is the kind of father he was. Back then, Memorial Stadium was open in Baltimore. It wasn't Camden Yards yet. And he talked to one of the grounds crew. He worked in and around Baltimore, D.C., so I guess he ran into one of them or something. But anyways, he asked them what was the concoction that they used for their pitcher's mounds and their infield, because it was not regular dirt. I mean, it was dirt, but it had other stuff in it. It had to, because of the wear and tear. And he told my dad, they used this with sand and dirt mixed with sand, mixed with blah, 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 blah. It was a bunch of... And my father went and got those ingredients and built me an identical pitching staff to the Baltimore Orioles. Pitching mound that the Baltimore Orioles pitchers used at Memorial. Identical. The same material, the same type of professional rubber that they used for the pitcher's rubber. That was the rubber they pitched off of. That's just the kind of father he was. He was wonderful. Anyways, I was coming home from baseball practice from high school. I was in 9th grade. It was right before I lost him. And I guess I was, 14 or something like that in 9th grade? 15? I don't even remember. But he was so proud because I had made the varsity baseball team in 9th grade. And that's usually not something that's done. I'm not bragging on myself. I worked hard. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I guess I just asked him one too many times, and he basically told me this story one day when we were on our way home. He had told me that in Korea, you went by points. You had to accumulate so many points before you were allowed to go home, leave the war. And he accumulated his points, and he was on his way back to a station, an aid station from the front. And it was him, and back then there was the United Nations that was in that war. I mean, every nation you can imagine, from, Great Britain to Greece, there was a lot of different countries involved. India, just a lot of different nations. Turkey, So my father happened to be walking back with an Indian soldier from India. And my father and him started taking sniper fire. And they dove behind a rock. And my father and that Indian soldier, they barely fit, because my father was only 15. If he'd have been a full-grown man, they probably wouldn't have been able to fit. But they laid behind that rock near 18 hours before something came through that they could get the attention of. And it was a medevac jeep taking soldiers back to the aid station. Well, the guy couldn't stop because he was, sniper started shooting at him. And of course, the driver realized what was going on. My dad was pinned down. And he had been there 18 hours until the Jeep went back to the aid station and told them. And my father said it was about another hour, and a heavily armored, I guess, half-track. I can't remember what he said, but it had a 50 caliber on the top. Or maybe it was a 30 caliber. I don't remember. Machine gun. But he said they ripped that woods to pieces. And he said, they didn't go in looking for the guy, obviously. But his firing stopped. And my father and the other soldier was able to finally, after 18 hours, get out from behind that rock and get back to the aid station to catch a ride back to where they would eventually be able to start processing paperwork to go home. That's the only story he ever told me. And I know that's not some blood and guts story. I'm sure he had plenty of those, but he wasn't going to tell his kid. And now, as a grown-up, looking back, I can fully understand that. Protecting your son from the horrors of war stories and stuff. I can understand that. But as a young kid, you want to hear about stuff like that. Of course, on movies, we're all out of war movies like Commando and Rambo were all out. And, those were the kind of movies kids my age went and watched and liked. Anyways, I thought it'd be befitting to tell a good story for Memorial Day about my father, whom I love and I will see again in heaven, because I know he's there. He was a good man of God. My mother as well. She's still with us, thank the Lord. Both blessed with both wonderful parents I could ever ask for. I mean it. I've been blessed. So, if you see a vet tomorrow, today, really, anytime, go up and thank them, because, believe me, it helps. It really does. I always try to go up when I see the guys with the World War II hats on, because there ain't many left. There's only a few left here. And I always thank them. Or the guys with the Vietnam War hats, Vietnam vet hats. Man, I always go out of my way to thank them guys. And Korea the same. It's wonderful. Anyways, I wanted to give you a story for Memorial Day. And that's really the only story I got of my father in the war. Like I said, he just didn't talk about it. But that was the story. And it was the truth. So anyways, have a good day. Have a good Sunday. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Pray for this country. Pray for our president. Pray for each other. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Subscribe if you want to. Hit the like button. And have a happy Memorial Day tomorrow. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Bye-bye.